Hi everyone, thanks for joining us for this session. Today we'll be talking about the future of linear TV, what that looks like. So of course we'll be discussing FAST, everyone's favourite topic, as well as free-to-air broadcast platforms, and also the user experience for consumers. I'm joined by two fantastic guests, Kann, who is the Chief Exec at Together TV, and Philipp, the CEO at wedotv. So just to start, I'd love to hand over to you guys just to give a little bit more background on the businesses and what you guys do. So let's start with Alex, please.
Hi everyone, I run Together TV. We're an independent community-owned broadcaster. We have about 250 owners and we're a free-to-air TV channel for social change. That means we're available on Sky, Virgin, Freeview and FreeSat, free-to-air as well as a number of streaming devices through our streaming service. Along with our programming, which is all geared around inspiring people to take up new activities and get more involved in life where they are, we run a filmmaking fund called the Diverse Film Fund, which won a BAFTA last year, and I'm delighted to say we're BAFTA nominated again this year, which was announced this morning, for one of our shorts. And we run social engagement campaigns, behaviour change campaigns, through a multi-week set of challenges that we ask our viewers to participate in. So we take TV content and encourage people to get more involved in interests and communities where they are.
Great, and congrats on the BAFTA. Philipp?
Yeah, my name is Philipp Rotermund. I'm CEO and founder from wedotv. For you for free, that's our claim. We are an AVOD service, actively in the German-speaking territories, in the UK, and since 6 weeks also in Italy. Yeah, it's a wide entertainment offering of on-demand content, and we also run a number of fast channels called We Do Movies and We Do Big Stories, which is a factual entertainment channel, mostly available through the classic fast platforms such as Samsung TV Plus, LG channels, but we're also trying to bring our channels into cable, always leveraging the power of dynamic ad insertion, because we think it's almost a free-to-air product, so we have to be in as many homes as possible.
Great, so I'd love to start off by just talking about fast channels. So Philipp, from your perspective, what role do these fast channels play? Is it to increase the life of content or to attract additional audiences?
Yeah, I think we heard it from the guys from Pluto before. They're probably the most prominent example of fast channels. Yes, they're obviously, the channels are highly curated, so you know, by picking a channel, you know, whether it's for us, We Do Movies, obviously it's clear what you can expect, and I think that attracts a lot of audience because nowadays on television there's a vast variety, but most of the big broadcast groups, they don't have a clear positioning of their channels. You would have live shows in the evening, you have news, you have entertainment content, whereas in the fast world it's, you know, it's very straightforward what you can achieve and what you get as a user.
And what about you, Alex? As linear viewing declines, how's your strategy changing as a broadcaster, and do you see fast playing a part in that?
Absolutely. We need to be where audiences are viewing TV. And we've done this in various ways over the years. We've had content partnership deals with platforms such as BT Vision, with My5 and the guys at Paramount for a while. We're an iPlayer third-party partner. For us, we felt that we really needed our own brand BVOD service, both catch-up and a VOD offer through it, which we have now created, which is available on desktop, mobile, and various CTV devices. I think it's quite funny for us. We have a very kind of heavy, traditional, older TV audience, one that really isn't transitioning to streaming as fast as I think some people in this room might have in their mind for the wide audience, wider streaming audience, and they certainly under-index in terms of streaming. We've done some research recently, you know, they watch us, they watch BBC heavily, but they only go to iPlayer once a month. That's their level of streaming. They don't do SVOD at all, and they barely touch social media. So very traditional, EPG-driven, listings-driven, word-of-mouth-driven viewership. Migrating them to streaming is a bit of a challenge, and actually trying to find ways to access them on the main free-to-air TV channels where they're already accessing their main services is what we're working on. So Freeview will be our biggest footprint for that. We already provide a streaming option to Sky through Sky Glass and Sky Stream. And as we develop that service, Fast will become a bigger offer within our streaming platform, curating various thematic channels within that. However, we're not a rights owner, we're a rights licenser generally. We make a little bit of programming, but generally license programs from filmmakers and distributors. And we need to work through that to ensure we can create a decent fast offer in addition to the rights we're currently taking.
Okay, cool. Yeah, there's a lot I would like to unpick from that, but I guess if we could start with talking a little bit more about Freeview and those free-to-air platforms. So, Philip, one of the things you mentioned, which is so interesting, is that wedotv has launched fast channels on Freeview and more traditional players, which I think is really interesting, as a lot of people are sort of moving away from the more traditional distribution aspects. But your thinking is obviously to be on as many platforms as possible. So for both of you, Freeview and cable are still hugely important. Do you think this is largely because of the demographics you target? And how do you see that evolving in the future?
Yeah, I think cable and like, let's say at least in Central Europe is still the main distribution outlet. Obviously, fast is growing fast, all those vendors. But on the other hand, people still have their set-top boxes, they have their cable connections, and therefore to watch linear TV, that's learned in the EPG. You go there, you know your ITV or BBC is on whatever 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then other channels are coming down the line. And for us as someone who runs channels, we not want to limit ourselves to the EPGs which are within the Samsung device. We want to also be, next to the big players, such the ITVs or the RTLs and ProSiebens in Germany, and therefore we invested very heavily in that we can be on Freeview, but we also on the satellite Astra for the German-speaking territories. We distribute by Deutsche Telekom. We just launched a proof of concept with a smaller German cable operator, but always under the circumstance that we can dynamically insert ads, and we're selling ads not based on an audience panel, but really like in a fast channel. And I think that is the biggest difference between classic linear television and fast in the end. But I think the end user doesn't really care whether it's fast or free TV. He just sees another channel in the EPG, and either he likes it or not.
What's your perspective, Alex? Like, how do you think the balance between sort of fast and sort of more traditional platforms is going to evolve over the future?
I think over the last decade, without doubt, we've seen a massive decline in traditional linear viewing, and particularly in pay, which seems to kind of certainly last year, the decline kind of accelerated faster than free to air. We've reached that inflection point where streaming is a massive, if not more substantial part of the linear viewing. I think we're going to reach an equilibrium over the next decade or so, and I think free to air TV. What you need to consider are kind of the legacy viewers. So we've just run research. So if you look at ad insertion on Freeview, it's only going to work for TVs from the last 4 or 5 years. That's where the technology, the capability of the TV sets are. Once you step outside of the Samsung environment or the LG environment, the Android TV environment. So those kind of operator-owned SDKs and app environments, if you're just targeting the wider TV platforms. Half of our viewers have got TVs older than 5 years. The reason we can't upgrade broadcast to the latest specs is you have to address backwards to people who've still got TVs that are 5 or 10 years old. So you always have to kind of drag this last few million people along with you before you can have a digital switch over. 92% of the people in the UK have got broadband, but there's still several million people without it. Free-to-air broadcasters, particularly the PSBs, have to have universal delivery. And so this idea of a digital switchover is still probably a decade away. But it's very alive. What is the future of DTT and Freeview as a platform? For us, yes, there are kind of new gatekeepers, new operators you might call. So instead of the kind of the platform operators, you've also got the TV manufacturers or the big tech operators, and we just want to be across all of them, which is challenging. We haven't got the full spread yet, and there are still platforms we want to target. When it comes to addressing the Freeview audience, you can scoop up quite a lot through the Samsung and LGs. Between them, they've got half the TV market. But there are a number of other brands out there we would like to address, and to do that, we are going down the HBB-TV route, which is a way to reach TVs through connected sets, not going through an app store. But it is a challenging world, as you have so many different manufacturers all working on different browser types, different capabilities within their sets, and so device compatibility is a real challenge. And we are seeing that expand more and more with fast channels launching straight onto Freeview, and we are spinning up something similar at the minute. But it's going to be a long path to getting to where we want it to be.
That's really interesting. One of the points you touched on is, just kind of being on all different platforms. And I wonder, Philip, when it comes to distributing those fast channels, is that your strategy for all the channels, being on as many providers like Samsung TV Plus, LG Plus, or are there any scenarios where you would consider exclusive distribution of a channel?
Exclusivity comes always as a price. So if one of the vendors gives us that kind of money, but no. But in the end of the day, we want to be in as many households as possible. So we don't, everywhere where dynamic ad insertion is possible, we're trying to get our channels in there, and not only the channels but also our apps as well. So obviously we featuring the normal set of iOS, Android, Samsung, etc. apps. But we're also launching the apps on the operator boxes. For example, just launched on Sunrise in Switzerland and on Comcast in the US, where basically in the App Store also the wedotv app is available.
And another thing that both of you have kind of touched on is fast channels that are available on your own platform, so your BVOD or AVOD platforms. This is something that's already quite commonplace for many of the AVOD platforms, and we're starting to see more broadcasters launch their own sort of fast channels on their services, like ITVX. But a little bit further down the line, do you think this is going to be really commonplace? And do you think we're also going to see players like Netflix and Disney Plus also offering fast channels for their viewers, particularly now they've gotten into the ad space? Alex, if you want to start.
Yeah, potentially yes. If we consider them very kind of low barrier to entry, very low kind of spin-up cost ways to surface much more of your great catalogue of programming and offer unique content niches in a way that people find really easy to use, particularly with the kind of choice paralysis you get with the massively deep content archives and content libraries you've got on the SVODs, then yeah, absolutely. I mean, I remember hearing a decade ago about the shakeout of TV channels that we were going to see in free-to-air and pay TV, and that hasn't happened, at the extent we thought it would. There's still, even though there are kind of fewer viewers around, there hasn't been that shakeout where lots of, apart from a couple of the US studios who've closed some of their pay channels, Freeview is kind of pretty much at capacity and has still got 80 odd channels on it. But I could see fast extending the channel range massively on Freeview over the next few years as the technology gets where it needs to be. And where there are barriers to entry in terms of spectrum costs and other kind of marketing costs and operating costs, we may reach an equilibrium where there are fewer DTT delivered channels or fewer DSAT delivered channels, but more fast channels, and so it becomes a different way of delivering a similar free-to-air channel experience, and it'll kind of probably coalesce around the middle somewhere.
Philip, is that something you agree with?
Yeah, I mean, Netflix. There have been rumors already that they want to run fast channels, and I probably think they will do at some point. And same goes for Disney. Yes, they have withdrawn their channels, but also changed strategy with the new Bob again. So they start selling content again, and I guess for every streaming platform, fast also is a great marketing tool, and that's for that reason I think some players will enter in that field, additionally to the ones which are already there.
What do you think that means in terms of competition, though, if this kind of linear sit-back viewing experience is going to then be available on all types of platforms? Do you think that will directly compete with your audiences, or do you think it doesn't make so much of a difference?
I think it has been for the last decade, and certainly looking at younger viewers in terms of big screen. So we know like big screen viewing is 80% of video consumption, give or take. With younger viewers, that's going towards gaming and social video and social media. So the thought that there isn't competition for eyeballs on the big screen through other means, that's been something we've had to coexist with for many moons. I guess the question is, what are your entry points? How much of it remains with the kind of the incumbent platforms like Freeview or Sky or other kind of similar operators in other territories, or more you're going through a Fire TV, Apple TV, Android TV, Samsung TV, etc. But the audience is there, and from what we're seeing through our Freeview delivered fast aspect, there's substantial potential there actually to convert. As I said, we have an older, more analog audience, but if you can present something to them that is super easy to access with kind of no barriers, no kind of cognitive effort required, I think that's kind of a really good way to migrate them to new forms of media consumption.
Great. And another question I have when it comes to competition, we've obviously seen so far that for fast channels there's been a bit of a lower barrier for content entry compared to a traditional channel. So, for example, we've got content that's more traditionally found on YouTube, like Fail Army, publications channels. So that's one thing that's been really great about Fast, but we're obviously seeing a lot more channels launch from bigger players, major studios and broadcasters. So what do you think's going to happen in terms of competition? Like, is there an endless amount of space on players like Samsung TV Plus, or how's that going to evolve? And do you think the competition around EPG positioning is going to intensify a lot more, Philip?
I think that's already the case. And if you look at Samsung TV Plus as probably the biggest player in Fast, they kind of being really selective on new channels. They're kicking out channels which are not performing. So it's all based on performance, basically. They have a clear vision that there shouldn't be more than 120 to 150 channels. So yeah, the competition is already there. And in the beginning or in the evolution of Fast, obviously, everyone who had a bit of content in his basement thought, okay, I'm running a channel now. But then there are big challenges, obviously, in monetization and making the play out, etc. And of course, in the beginning, whether it was Samsung or LG or the TV manufacturers, they took everything they could get. But now they're in a space where they're saying, we have all the good stuff already. Now they want to have the tier one broadcasters. Whether they achieve that, I doubt, but let's see.
Alex, what do you think? How important do you think that kind of EPG positioning is? And what's your view on how difficult it might be to launch Fast Channel in the future for a smaller content owner?
I think EPG positioning and prominence has been the subject of kind of furious and passionate debate and advocacy by the PSBs, particularly in the new media bill that's coming through, to ensure there is prominence across all platforms, including kind of the newer entrants. It is still largely a driver of footfall, and you can see a direct correlation to your position on the EPG to the footfall you get as a channel. It's not a kind of one-to-one, because some channels absolutely pop beyond where they might sit in the EPG. I think the value that was once in those EPG positions is declining as people are finding content directly through SVOD apps and other apps and things like that. So, having bought and sold EPG slots within free-to-air and pay market, I think that market has kind of softened over the last few years as some players have launched their own SVODs. But prominence is absolutely key, because you're tapping into an existing market. 15 to 20 million people watching on Freeview every night. Rather than having to go out and market cold out in the wilds of app stores and the internet and kind of using performance marketing to bring people in. And we can see from the acquisition costs of the SVODs, which are rocketing, not having that kind of inbuilt incumbent effect of an EPG slot it means massive marketing costs. I think the long tail is a wonderful thing, and does mean that there's theoretically infinite inventory and slots you can open up. But if you're not getting footfall to your channels, and you do have delivery costs and other admin costs, very soon some of these channels will just not make economic sense to do. I think the argument way back when was that TV channels were going to be killed off by the streaming services or by the program brands, and I think there's a truth to that people are much more attracted to a big brand, whether it's a kind of a Love Island or a Strictly, than whether it's an ITV1 or a BBC show. I think what we'll see is some of the rights holders, the distributors, who have these big franchise series being able to go direct to market. And some of them over the years have tried. Shine launched one in the States, and I know the Fremantles and all three. They are sat on very deep content catalogues with some really great programming franchises across scripted and unscripted within them. I guess the question is whether they see more of an opportunity going direct to market, direct to platform themselves, or continuing to sell to broadcasters who then present them through their ITVXs, their SVODs, their BVODs.
One of the things you mentioned there was scripted and unscripted content. And I think when Fast first launched, we saw that some of the content that performed very well was unscripted content that you can dip in and out of. But it seems to be changing a little bit. And what do you both think in terms of whether there is a place for more narrative-driven content, scripted content on Fast, and whether we're going to see players starting to premiere content on Fast at any point? Philip, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think we will see people having originals and premiere content on Fast. Once Fast in, let's say, whether it's UK or German speaking, or let's talk about the European market, when the distribution is big enough. Just at this point, I think from a Samsung TV Plus alone, even if your channel is performing really well in viewing hours and you're doing a good ad sales, it still can't cover the cost of production. That will be the case in a couple of years when the Fast channels are also part of the full free TV ecosystem, which they will eventually. And then, you know, what obviously has been, and you mentioned that earlier, been very successful is the single IP channels, where this is not a premiere, but still it's very much focused on one IP or one genre.
Oh, I'd just like to add to that. I mean, scripted, absolutely. I think the big distinction is within scripted, whether it's serialized or non-serialized. So if you look at a number of drama TV channels, which will play endless reruns of detective shows, very limited narrative through lines. You can dip in and out of a Poirot, you can dip in and out of a Midsummer Murders. Those will work on Fast. I think, and that, I think if, you know, the nature of a kind of 24-hour endless kind of carousel of content, you want to dip in and out. It's like a Sunday stack on a TV channel. I think where drama scripted would struggle a bit more is where it is heavily narrative driven, because you know, are you going to stick around for a 8-part drama if you come in at the wrong time or you miss one episode? So I think self-contained, particularly your kind of CSIs and your NCIS and your Bones, those kinds of high volume, self-contained one-off, resolve it within 45 minutes, 60-minute type shows would be suitable to catch. But no, where you have a much more involved premium through line driven type drama, shorter run drama, I think they'll struggle a bit more.
So do you think in the future we'll kind of lose that, you know, everyone has to tune in at a certain time for linear TV to watch something, and everything will be done through on demand for new releases? Or do you think there is a world where content could be premiered still on linear channels, whether that's by Fast or traditional?
I think we'll have a mixed ecology. I think people will be trying out different things in different territories and different windows, and whether you're a big PSB, you are going to want to premiere things on your main screen. There's a really interesting case study about It's a Sin on Channel 4 last year or the year before, where they online premiered and they had more kind of viewing pre-TX. TX was maybe only like 10 or 15% of it, of overall viewing, and then more viewing post-TX on catch-up. And that hit a much younger audience who would not expect to do a appointment to view through linear. But now you're seeing linear used by Disney to sample some of their SVOD shows. So I think, I think linear will always be around for the big live premium events, whether it's kind of sports or entertainment or shiny floor or national occasions. And I will still be a shop window that brings the nation together at points. But I don't think there's going to be a one-size-fits-all answer to that one.
Great. So the next couple of questions I have to take us to the end of the session are more about the user experience and how that might change in the future. So when it comes to Fast providers, is there anything they can do to increase their value to both consumers or sort of content owners and channel owners when it comes to delivering and presenting streamed linear TV?
I think the biggest challenge what we as a channel owner have is the content discovery with the vast variety of channels, and I think that's more an issue what we need to solve with the platforms together, with the TV manufacturer, because it's not only Fast. Obviously, they might have the normal traditional EPG, then they have the app store with all these apps, and when you come in as a new user and you you might know, okay, I want to have my Netflix app, that's fine, but if you're unexperienced in that field, how do you actually discover all this content there? Obviously, of course, we as a channel owner, we try to provide marketing materials that certain themes can be pushed by the partner throughout the certain period. Let's say you have Christmas, and then we have Christmas movies, and obviously we hope that Samsung takes our banners and say, hey, they're great Christmas movies, and we do. But still, there's so much content out there, so it's tough to find for the users, and that's where we're working very actively together with our partners to promote the content which we run on the channels, whether that seems like Christmas or Easter or family or whatever.
Alex, what about you? Do you think there's at the moment any kind of improvements that can be made around the delivery of fast channels as it currently stands?
I think things can always be improved. For us, we're a small standalone independent channel, so our catalogue is not as deep as some of the SVODs. We're talking kind of a few hundred hours of content, not thousands and thousands of hours of content. In terms of presentation, we're at a point where what we can do directly with our viewers through our engagement stack that we've developed. So we know who our viewers are, where they live, their phone number, their email address. We can communicate to them through SMS, through WhatsApp. We can personalize, localize their offer, send them local information. To bolt that together with a viewing experience is a bit of a technology challenge for us, but that's ultimately where we want to get to, where what we can do through FAST and through streaming, we know what they're watching, we can personalize the ads, but we need to link their user data from the viewing experience into the kind of more behavior change real world experience that we work with them on when they're sending us pictures, they're growing stuff, they're telling us what they're getting up to, they're emailing us and all of that. So that would be one way for us to engage our viewers multi-week. We do have that to a degree, so we do have integration. So if you go on and watch one of our gardening series, you can then click a button, you get seeds sent to you in the post because we know who you are. We can do like one-click sign-up, stuff like that. But really, to unify that in the future where you've got viewing, you've got engagement, to increase loyalty, to increase retention, to improve the viewing experience, that's not necessarily a video consumption related enhancement, but it's about viewers feeling much more active and participating more in the stuff we do off screen.
Yeah, so I think personalisation there is kind of very key, and this is something you mentioned, Philip, as well, that the kind of dynamic ad insertions can obviously make the experience better for users when content's streamed. But what about personalised virtual linear channels where you've got content that is essentially stitched together from on-demand assets that are available in the catalogue? Like, do you think we'll start seeing things like that, or do you think at the moment we're not quite in a place to do that just yet?
Probably not now, but it will come eventually. The problem, what I personally see, and we've talked to companies who think they can do this personalized playlist fast channels. I think the first problem is, or what we need to solve is, how does a Samsung react on that? Do they want that? Because the review process to launch a channel on Samsung or LG is very complicated, and it's a long-term process. So, and then if you take, for example, our library, which is a couple of thousand hours deep, if there's a personalized channel, there might be content shown on a Samsung device which they don't like to see. That is one problem. And then the algorithm needs to be really, really good, because if I look at my Netflix behavior, for example, I would think the algorithm doesn't seem to be as good as they think it is, because I never find a show which is suggested to me. So yes, maybe, but I think that will take a while until algorithms or AI is smart enough to do that.
Alex, any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I think within our own streaming environment, we do have the capability to create, whether you kind of call it fast, whether you call it kind of personalized playlists, we will have the way to surface a sequence of programming based on your viewing behavior and algorithmically driven recommendations. I don't, I kind of struggle to kind of demarcate that from a kind of suggestion list that you might automatically get delivered through an SVOD, and how that feels more like a linear environment. We already have kind of continue playing autoplay functionality within our catch up and VOD viewing experience. So I think it's kind of an enhancement to that. Our big challenge, I think, is to get kind of recommendation and personalization tools that are, feel personalized rather than, oh, you kind of like that, so based on this field and this tag, you might like this. Our big challenge is around rights and being able to ensure that we can offer all our programming to viewers in this way.
Great. So we've only got 5 minutes left for the session, so I'd love to open up to audience questions, if there are any. And no questions?
You answered all questions. That's good.
Great. Well, thank you so much, both of you. I guess if we've got a few more minutes, let's just finish off with, first of all, realistically, how big do you think the FAST opportunity is in the UK, and how far we are away from seeing it kind of really sort of become, of a comparable size to sort of traditional means? Either one of you can go first. Yeah.
Okay.
Whoever wants to go first.
For me, as I said earlier, I think these two worlds, fast and free TV, they kind of meld together, and then it's like one big television and they say streaming market, and there will be a budget allocated to it. I don't know by heart how much or how big the UK television market is in terms of pounds, but fast will have a certain percentage of that. Whether it's more on the likes of 10 or 50%, the future will tell.
I mean, to me, it feels a little bit like multi-channel TV. It used to have kind of 2 or 3 main TV channels, and as multi-channel grew, it just kind of kept eating and eating away its share of the main channels. But then, the PSBs kind of retained a lot of it through their portfolio channels. I think there is a big opportunity. I mean, the issue, I guess, is kind of scaling it and making sure you can address the whole market and making sure that the existing free TV market comes along with it. The opportunity is the viewing is still a lot more valuable in terms of CPMs than the Barb linear market. And at some point, once it scales, the uniqueness of the fast market won't be looking as unique compared to linear delivery. So I think, the CPMs will have to start to align, or the gap will start to close between the two. And then I think there will come a kind of economic case of which becomes more efficient to deliver. Is it more efficient to deliver to mass audience via Spectrum or to deliver via IP? I think that is a good decade away, though. But I think the opportunity for there to be a substantial increase in the number of channels available, and for it to eat away at the share of the existing channels is fairly sizable.
Great. Thank you, everyone.